So today we're going to cover section 6 from chapter 6. Today we're going to talk about inequalities in two triangles. So what we're going to be using to compare these is the Hinge Theorem. And the Hinge Theorem states that if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, then the included angle of the first is larger than the included angle of the second. Then the third side of the first triangle is longer than the third side of the second triangle. So I know this is a lot of words, but in order for this theorem to work, we do need to have two pairs of congruent sides, and then based on the angle size, we'll tell you which side is bigger. So here in this picture, the red angle, they're telling us, is larger than the blue angle. So then that would tell me that side BC is bigger than side EF. And that's the inequality that they stated here. So again, same type of comparison as the lesson before. The biggest side is always across from the biggest angle, and vice versa, the smaller side. Now, I can sort of show you what this means. You could think of a hinge on a door, or I'm going to sort of show you with a pair of scissors. I'll go up to the front and I'll see if I can put it in the camera. It's kind of hard to see. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my pair of scissors, because think of the scissor blades as being the congruent sides. And then depending on how wide I open my scissor, that'll determine how big the angle is and how big the side is. Now remember, this theorem, it says it's 6.12. We don't memorize the number. You would use the name. All right, now we're going to do the converse. So if they tell us the length of the side, then I can decide which angle's bigger. So just like before, the bigger angle is going to be across from the bigger side. So in words, this theorem states, the converse states that if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, and the third side of the first triangle is longer than the third side of the second, then the included angle of the first is larger than the included angle of the second. So here they're telling us that side GH in this red triangle is the bigger side. So then that tells me that the angle across from it, angle J, is going to be bigger than angle M that's across from the smaller side KL. Good. Any questions? So now we're just going to do 3 examples, just applying these two theorems. So here they're telling us that given that D is the midpoint of AC and angle 1 is less than angle 2, what can you deduce? So what it means here, what can you deduce? What can you determine from the picture? Now, in order to use the Hinge Theorem, we need to have two pairs of congruent sides. So because they told us that D was the midpoint, I can see that these are congruent pieces here. AD is congruent to DC. And then I have this reflexive side right here, the BD. So the two angles they're referring to are ADB, which is angle 2, and then BDC, which is angle 1. So here it says, what can we determine? Well, if angle 1 is bigger, and if you wanted to give it numbers so it's easier to see, this is a straight line. We could say that angle 1 could be 60, and maybe angle 2 might be 120. Just as long as you put in numbers that make 2 bigger than 1, because 60, and maybe let me go in a different color here. 60 is less than 120. So then what you would say is the side that's across from the 120 which is side AB, is going to be greater than the side across from the 60, which is BC. This is what we could deduce. You could have also said it this way, say BC is less than AB. Either way you could say this. This is what we could figure out given that angle 1 was the smaller angle. You don't necessarily have to put numbers in there, but if it helps you see which one is the bigger side, you can do that. Now, never go by what it looks like, because definitely in the picture it looks like AB is bigger, but you always have to use the numbers that they give you. Sometimes the pictures aren't drawn to scale. Let's try the next one. It says complete with a less than, a greater than, or an equal to. Now remember, in order for the Hinge theorem to work, we need to have two pairs of congruent sides. So let's figure out what sides we've got. I've got a 4 and this 4 match, and then the other side would be the side that they share. So the two angles we're referring to are angle 1 and angle 2 here. And the way that we can compare the size of those angles is to look to see the side that it's across from. So across from the 2 is the 3. So angle 2 is opposite the side that equals 3, and then angle 1 is opposite the side that equals 4, making angle 1 the bigger angle. So angle 1 is greater than angle 2. Because it's across from the bigger side, the bigger third side. Okay, so here it wants us to find the range of values for K. So what I need to do is I'm going to be solving an inequality. So first of all, let's figure out where K is. So the two angles that they're asking me to compare are this one right here, where the 5K minus 12 is located, and then the other angle is right here where the 38 is. Because remember, you need two pairs of congruent sides. I have these two shown as congruent, and then I have the reflexive side. So now, looking at this, I have to decide which one's bigger, the 38 or the 5K minus 12. And the way that I can decide that is to look at the side across. So across from the 5K minus 12 is 18, but across from the 38 is the 19. So that tells me that out of those two angles, the blue and the red one, 38 is the bigger angle. So what I'm going to do to get the values of K, I'm going to set up an inequality. I'm going to do 5K minus 12, and this angle has to be less than 38. I'm going to solve for K. I'm going to add 12. I get 38 plus 12 is 50. Divide by 5. K has to be less than 10. Now, this is as big as it could get. Now I have to look at the smaller end. It's got to be at least 1. So I'm going to also solve another inequality to get the bottom end for K. And I'm going to do 5K minus 12 must be greater than 0. Because the angle measure has to be a number between 1 and 38, or between 0 and 38, not including 0 and 38. So I would add 12. 5k greater than 12, divide by 5, and k must be greater than 12 over 5. So as a compound inequality, the values for k are going to be a number in between 12 over 5 and 10. If you want to make 12 over 5 a mixed number, k has to be any number between 2 and 2/5 and 10. And that's going to give me an angle measure. Once I plug in that value for k, it's going to give me an angle measure between 1 and 38. Yes?
Why did you do 0?
Because what I'm trying to do is when I plug in k, so let's first take the top end. Let's say we plug in k equals 9. So if I do 5 times 9 minus 12, 45 minus 12, this is going to give me an angle of 33 degrees. However, let's say I plug in a number that's bigger than this one that I got from when I set it equal to 0. Let's say I plug in k equals 3. So then when I do that, 5 times 3 minus 12, 15 minus 12, and, greater than 0, sorry. Just do it here, and then I get 3 degrees. So any number that is in this inequality could give me a possible angle measure. So this could actually be a 3-degree angle. It could be a 33-degree angle. It's got to be any number in between there. So I have to take into consideration where it would stop, because I don't want to plug in any number that's less than 10. I don't want to plug in a negative number, then I would get a negative angle. So it's got to be at least as big as, it's got to be bigger than 0.
So you always do 0?
So you would always use 0 if it asked you to find the range for the for an angle measure. Yes. So you have to do both. Yes.
Wait, I don't understand how you got 3.
When I plug that in,
Yeah, where did you get 3 from?
I plugged it into 5, maybe I did the math wrong, 5k minus 12. I just picked any number that was in, that would satisfy bigger than 2 and 2/5 and less than 10. I could have plugged in 4. I just wanted to demonstrate that it could be super small or it could be closer to the 38. Does that make sense? And that was it. Any questions on the notes? All right, so you have the homework for 6-6. It's due tomorrow at 8. Then tomorrow night, your homework is the chapter review. So you'll be completing that, and then that will be due on Thursday. Then also on Canvas is an extra review that you can do to study for the test, and that file or that assignment has the answers in it. That extra review that has a due date of Friday, you don't need to turn it into Canvas. So today's the last lesson, and then we'll spend Wednesday and Thursday reviewing for Friday's test. And then as it gets closer to the test, I'll give you more specifics about the test. The test is still going through revisions, so we haven't finalized it yet. I still have several makeups for the test, for the quiz. As soon as those people make it up today or tomorrow morning, then I'll release the answers so you guys can use that to study for the test as well. Any other ones? All right, so somebody wants me to zoom out. Here you go. This part right here was just me plugging in numbers. So possible angle measures would be these. Again, you can pick whatever k value you want. I just picked 3 and 9 just to show you some possible angle measures. But any number between 2 and 2/5 and 10, you could plug in for k to get an angle measure. So that is it. So you can go ahead and start your homework, and then tomorrow we'll go over it, and then whatever time remains, you can work on your review in class. Tomorrow is early release.